Hi, we're Karen and Josh from Edible Eden Design, and we're going to repot this very large lemon myrtle, and in the process show you how easy it is to repot large plants and kind of bring them back to what they were meant to be and what they've lost a little bit of. So this lemon myrtle plant I bought as a standard. A standard is kind of when you've got a clean trunk and a bit of a ball thing happening on top, a pruned ball. Believe it or not, this was once a standard lemon myrtle that I bought probably more than 15 years ago. Backhousia, citriodora. In Melbourne, they are best kept in a pot, or they can go in the ground in a sheltered spot. But they do really well in pots, that's what I suppose I'd like to say. And also I've got heavy clay soil here, and so therefore the lemon myrtle likes being in a pot. However, all pot plants should be repotted every 3 to 5 years, and this is well over that used by date of potting mix. We'll just move the Edible Eden plant ID sign and we'll show you, and the irrigation, which needs redoing. What we're going to show you, thanks Josh, is that this plant has actually gone through into the ground, and that's an issue. What happens when a big plant sends its roots through the drainage hole is that if I was to fill this plant up with, if I was to water this plant a lot, it would fill up with water, and you can inadvertently drown your plants. And I've had that happen to plants in the past when I've been away and the irrigation came on, filled it up, drowned it, the plant dies, which is tragic. It's very sad. So I don't want this to happen to the lemon myrtle. So what we need to do now is detach it from where it's decided it would love to get into the ground actually and spread its roots further. And at the same time, when you're cutting back the roots, you need to cut back the top too. And we're going to do some harvesting, and that will mean that we've got some lemon myrtle to dry, and the tree feels happier because it's in fresher potting mix. And we prune the roots, so it's a bit like a bonsai situation where we're trying to keep it in this same pot size. I think we're going to use a pruning saw to try to cut the root at the base, but let's see how we go. We'll try and see, Josh, if you can pull it over one way, and I'll try and, we might be able to, yeah, okay, that's, he's close, isn't it? Whoops. Now push it the other way. Push that to the top too. How's that? That feels free.
Yes. Liberated.
Okay, so that's our first problem. It's really good to keep an old pruning saw for cutting roots in the ground. It makes your life a lot easier when you're removing plants, doing things like this, or transplanting. Just one that's designated to soil. So now, Josh, I'll show you what we do. We're going to tip over this plant. Try not to kill the videographer. Sometimes it's easier to cut the top off first, but we'll see how we go. We're doing okay with that. Josh, can you please grab those long trowels? So what we've got here is we've got trowels. You can see this one's been used for this purpose quite a lot and for getting into weird and wonderful places. Probably could do with a bit of panel beating. Anyway, what we're doing is, I'll start with this one, we're trying to separate the root ball. In smaller pots you can do this with an old bread and butter knife, and you go around and try and separate the root ball from the edge of the, you can go around with that one, Josh, from the edge of the pot, because it seems to kind of stick onto it, and possibly because this one's unglazed inside, that would be the reason why. But it can be really difficult to dislodge the plant. So we go as far as we can. A longer trowel would be more beneficial, but we don't have them. What do you think about that? So now we'll try. Now comes another special task where Josh sits on the pot to provide weight, and I try and pull the plant out. And also I can weave a bit like this. Oh, and we're having success. And you can wiggle it a bit this way and that way. That works really well too. Sometimes the pots are a little bit closed into the top, which is super, super annoying. And that's kind of a bit this case. Just wiggle it, yeah. And that's just good if you're at the back, sorry. Yeah, because it would be handy too if I could wear shoes, but can't because of stupid borreliosis.
There we go.
Now, we can have a look at the root ball. Okay. Now, This would be good to do on a nice worm right back in the garden. This would be good to do on a nice tarp to keep this Germana toppings clean, but it already needs redoing, so I'm not going to bother too much. So look at this root,
Massive root.
which had been going through the only drainage hole in the pot. So where the water went, the root followed. And clogged it up, yeah. So we cut that. But what we do now is we do what's similar in bonsai, is we go around and we cut, percentage-wise, I don't know what percentage, about 1 centimetre or so from all the outside of the root ball, like so. So this is why we use, sorry.
Why's that?
This is to stop the roots from circling, but it's mainly to trim back the roots and give them fresh potting mix to grow into. It's making space for the fresh potting mix to be in the pot. Because you're root pruning to keep the plant smaller, and therefore you're able to keep the plant in the same size pot. Otherwise, you have to keep on going up in pot size.
Yep.
And because I'm pruning this plant frequently, I don't want it to get much bigger. I only want it to produce a certain amount of leaves per year, so it's kind of managing a plant. So it's different to bonsai in that way, because it's not for a special effect. It's more, well, I don't want a massive plant. I just want to be able to harvest it a lot. And, I do harvest it a lot. And, so you're trying to go around like so. And you also cut about 1 centimetre or so off the bottom, or for American people watching, half an inch. So they're probably not likely to be repotting a lemon myrtle. So, especially where the big root is, that's quite a big thing to cut. So it's managing plant size. Because this is one of the main purposes of these long nose snips, and that's why we sell them, because they're really, really good root pruning snips. Now, back to the task. Yeah. So this is a good point to show you that this is what we're taking off. The roots are kind of going round and round around the pot, and we're trying to get rid of that layout, and we're getting it back to where the roots have come out of the root ball. And this can even be pruned a teeny bit more, but that's how much we're taking off. So we're taking off a good amount so we can put in fresh potting mix for the plant to grow in. Fresh media.
Fingers length.
Yeah, a couple centimetres.
So now we've done cutting the root ball. What kind of potting mix do we have?
Well, good question, Josh. Yeah. We can just use regular potting mix, premium potting mix, and you know how to cut the top to open it up. That's because it's a rainforest plant and they don't need specific native fertilisers. Native fertilisers are low in phosphorus, but these are not, lemon myrtle is not the kind of plant that minds about having some phosphorus in its soil. It likes regular potting mix and regular fertiliser. So we'll put some in the bottom if you wouldn't mind. You always put some potting mix in the bottom of any pot. You never put that's probably enough. Now the other thing is we need to label that. Oh, so we can see that there's some little fertiliser balls in here. And some potting mixes have fertilisers, some don't. So it's good to check the bag. Yeah. And you can tell whether the fertiliser in the brand new bag of potting mix you've got is already used up by squishing it between your thumb and forefinger. Dash it all. That fertiliser is not going to release. That's not going to release fertiliser for very long. It's done. Right. That means that potting mix has been sitting in the bag at the nursery a bit too long. Okay. So yeah, that's how you can tell if the little fertiliser balls are going to keep releasing. Yeah. So that means
should we
that.
Add some,
well, not when you're first repotting something.
Yeah.
It just means that after a month or so and the plant's settled, we'll put some new fertiliser around it because it really won't have any left to access.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's good to assess that when you put you can use it you can do that assessment in your old potting mix as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Now we want to measure, highly technical method, the height of the, actually you can probably do it from there. You measure that to see what the height of the plant is. So put that inside, yeah, and put it up to the edge of the pot, we can see how much more potting mix we need. Okay, so we're going to put a bit more potting mix in the bottom then. Yep. So you wouldn't mind. Yeah. Level it out, measure it up again. It's going to sit about here. We always want to have a bit of room at the top of the pot to allow room for water to,
Yes.
to go in.
Yeah.
You know what? That might compact a little bit. Let's pop a tiny bit more in, because the big plant is quite heavy. Okay, now the plant goes in, and another thing is it's really good to put the plant looking the right way.
Yeah.
If you've got a plant that, we're going to look at a plant a bit later, that really needed to have been turned around more, and now it's got an issue with going only one direction.
Yeah. So trying to encourage the growth in the other.
Yeah. In nurseries, strictly speak, production nurseries, you're meant to move plants all the time because they go towards the sun.
Yeah.
And so to get an even growth habit, same with indoor plants actually.
Okay.
Anyway, this one's only got one spot to live in. So, wait a minute, I think it's around the wrong way. So let's turn it 180 degrees. A bit more. What do you think? No, I think I've got that completely around the wrong way. Is that the way it was? Let's turn it a little bit more. No, that's definitely the back, isn't it?
Yeah, you
it
can see
is.
the leaves.
Yeah, okay, let's go back 180 again. Always good to look now. It's harder to get it picked up when it's in the pot. I think it must have been growing into that space.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give that a go. It looks not great either way. So you can see even after all that pruning, maybe come over and have a look, that it's only just got enough potting mix space. It's got space underneath it, but it hasn't got much around it.
Yeah.
That's about the bare minimum that you want.
Right. Okay.
So now let's have a quick last look. We're going to go with this. The good thing about something being in a pot is that we can move the pot around afterwards.
Sure,
Or often, if it's really heavy, it's difficult. So yeah, that's about the best we can get, and we're going to do some pruning. Oh, it's bothering me. I'm really wanting it to. No, that's bad. Okay, I think that's the best we can get, and we'll do some pruning.
Yeah.
So now we'll pop some potting mix in, if you wouldn't mind, Josh.
Just around there.
Just you can tip it in, and modern potting mixes. The potting mixes you buy now, you shouldn't have to really compress them too much. They do settle quite well with watering, but when you do have little narrow spaces like this around the edge of the root ball, then it can be good to push it down a little bit, just gently. Maybe stop there. So we'll push some right down like so. Yeah, just gently, not too much. Now that's probably enough for the minute. The other thing is to try and get the main trunk of a plant in the centre of the pot, because it looks better and it gives it a more even growth habit. There's a lot of things in horticulture that are about the look.
Yeah, it's all aesthetics.
Yeah. Now.
And not bearing.
Yeah,
roots.
well, we don't want the roots too exposed, so we will put a teeny bit more on top of that. So possibly that last bit that I've added at the base, that I said, yeah, let's put a bit more in, might have meant that it's too close to the surface, but it will probably settle a bit after we water it. It's got a lot of settling to do yet. And you always top up the last bit of potting mix after you've watered it in well once or twice. Josh is watching in the plant. If you had a clear space around it, you'd water until a reasonable amount of water came out from the bottom of the pot, because that's indicating that the potting mix has all been drained, settled well, and watered in well. But he's just going to keep on watering for a few minutes, really. Now we'll start to think about reshaping the plant. Some bits have been broken in the working process. Other bits, what we're doing is we're cutting back to a shoot. So even though it is warm, coming into warm weather in Melbourne, so you can cut into dead wood to rejuvenate a plant and reshape it. This one's broken, so I'll cut that off. But I know from experience that this plant, it's a bit marginal if I cut it back into dead wood for it to re-sprout from there. So I'd rather not do that if possible. Instead, I am cutting back to shoots or to a node of some sort that has a shoot, preferably. Cutting back to living material. So I'm cutting back to there's another shoot, and I'm just working my way around the plant to reshape it. And I'm going to be taking that whole top section off, and that will help the plant recover from a lot of disturbance to its root ball and some cutting back of its root. I don't want the plant to go much higher than this, so you can see where I've cut before and it's sprouted, but I'm going to cut back quite a bit this time because this is a serious cutback of the roots. So sometimes it's unavoidable. There's going to be a bit of cutting into bare wood just there, but that's at the very tip of a plant and a highest point where the growth hormones will be the most active, so it's probably going to be okay for regrowth. Even these ones we're cutting back. Sort of cutting it back all over. See this? I want that to re-sprout from there.
Yep.
Are you videoing or fast forward videoing? You can always take more off, but you can't put it back on again.
So springtime's a good time to prune?
Spring, mid to late spring is a good time for repotting.
Yep.
When there's good warm weather for a nice settling in of root balls and nice new growth to reshape a plant over summer and autumn. You think that?
Oh no, it's take the leaves a bit.
Oh, thank you, sorry. You're saying take that. So yeah, what do we think? Does it look balanced? Do we want to take more off? She looks a lot better than she did before.
Yeah.
Another point is to look for when the new growth has firmed up or not, it's not bronzy or pink anymore and not soft, because if you cut that growth you can't really dry it. So things like this new growth there, that really soft velvety growth, that's just going to shrivel in a day or so. You can use that in your tea in the next day or so, or today, so as not to waste it. But this way, 99.9% of this is going to get used, so you get harvest at the same time, which is always optimal.
Yeah.